Now we be the voice that got talk true. For the land we done they so for silence too.
Hello my people, now welcome for this Ogbonge episode of Voices of Vigilance, where we dey bring you voices of active citizens and activists for Obodo Naija. My people, na hot buzz happened for court last Friday, June the 13th, 2025 for Nnamdi Kanu matter. The court station no be child play as DSS come full ground with serious evidence against Nnamdi Kanu. One DSS agent where they call witness DDD carrying own enter 18. Yes, the man talk say na true say na Nnamdi Kanu be the leader of IPOB and na him be the voice behind the Radio Biafra. Yes, in say Kanu they use that in broadcast. The ginger people made they attack security officers, especially for inside Southeast. According to the witness, they even catch one transmitter where Kanu hide for one Benjamin Madago's place for Isuzo. Now there, they even see arms and weapons join. Yes, the DSS play some voice notes for court where they hear Nnamdi Kanu, they shout, they give order to ESN, say make they burn down Nigeria. That witness tell court say ESN they operate like guerrilla fighters. Say that they move in group, they attack checkpoints, and they even carry out Nnamdi Kanu's instruction, especially for during Biafra Day. Them still play one voice recording of Ikonsol, the ESN commander, will lead attack for Imo prison before they kill him. Yes, the witness talk say another person, one Ozoma testify say Nnamdi Kanu tell him make it by 2,000 persons, but he only managed kill 20. As all this evidence they drop like bomb, everybody expects say Kanu defense team go fight back sharp. But lawyers just keep quiet, they look anyanya. People they wonder waiting be their strategy. Even some active voices converse on top. Join.
Today was a victory for the federal government lawyers. It's so obvious. Federal government lawyers scored a huge victory today. Look at the barrage of evidence they brought. Look at the barrage. Look at the preparation they did throughout the weeks. And I'm going to blame Nnamdi Kanu's lawyers for this because they had 3 weeks to prepare. I know that the prosecution had center stage, but you don't allow them to take the center stage by doing nothing. When they're trying to make points that may harm, that may harm your client, that is when you should step in. Don't allow that, don't allow it to happen. Find a way. You saw what the prosecution did on the last court case. You saw how their vehicles were always saying objection. The prosecution lawyer is always objecting, except he knows he doesn't have sufficient evidence on what he wants to say or does not have the backup for his objection.
My people, but no be everybody see him like that. Even active voice Marcel Happiness Okocha no think like that.
Well, this statement is going to be cross-examined by the Nnamdi Kanu's legal team in subsequent days. There are so many things that transpired in court today. When you look at what is on the news today, you will see that there are some stories like breaking terrorism charges. Judges move Nnamdi Kanu's trial to DSS headquarters. So that is the news all over the place, and a lot of news media like Daily Post did not even give the accurate update about it and adjourned further proceedings. The defense team objected to the admissibility of some of the evidence, but the court ruled in favor of the prosecution. Now, the issue of the noise and kunlabando about the trial judge James Omotosho shifting the trial of Nnamdi Kanu to DSS custody is not that accurate. So it is not just what you are seeing on the news. The judge did not shift or transfer the ongoing case to the Department of State Service facility. But what he did was because of the matter they are treating in the court today about the allegation of federal government against Nnamdi Kanu that he smuggled transmission equipment into Nigeria. However, that is not a serious issue like that. That someone brought transmitting equipment like microphone, radio equipment into Nigeria, and they said he brought it illegally. Well, that is not a serious issue. Do you remember that during the time of age of 4 years, the former counsel to Nnamdi Kanu, even it was Michael Zekome, senior advocate of Nigeria, that led the team that made the federal government to quash all those charges. The federal government, first of all, lied against Nnamdi Kanu at the first time and said that he smuggled guns into Nigeria. Go and read the first 14 count charges against Nnamdi Kanu. What they put there is that he smuggled guns into Nigeria, but at the end they discovered that these people are just lying. It was radio equipment he smuggled. By the way, for you to confirm what I'm saying, the first day when this case started with Justice James Omoyele, DSS admitted that they did not find anything incriminating or terrorizing against Nnamdi Kanu. You know what that means, right? So those radio equipment, all those things, not that these things are related to terrorism. Okay, if you really want to find someone because you say, oh, he brought radio equipment into the country, maybe he did not pass through custom, he's supposed to pay custom, maybe it's a different case entirely. Don't forget that one who's as I said earlier, DSS played his video or voice note recording that he alleged that Nnamdi Kanu asked him to kill 2,000 persons, but he managed to kill only 30 persons. So, as usual, this is another allegation that the people that will cross-examine the witness will do on subsequent days. Like, if you are in the position as a lawyer to look into all these things, you would see that it is very easy for me now to carry microphone, carry camera. I said, Tinubu asked me to come here and destroy these houses. The truth is, was it Tinubu that asked me? What is the relationship between me and Tinubu? Unless you brought me, or unless you bring me, to the courtroom and, ask me to testify what you hear, whether it's true or not, you've got to confirm, is the person you are mentioning really, say something like that? Did he say it on a video? Then will you be able to provide the person? So there are a lot of things associated to this issue. And videos can be manipulated today. A lot of things can happen today. So that is that. The case has been adjourned to, the following sitting. And let us see what is going to transpire.
Meanwhile, Omoyele Sowore don't see him tete. Why go hard? May they release Nnamdi Kanu.
There's an Igbo problem in Nigeria. That's why they're holding Nnamdi Kanu.
What's your take on
for asking
Nnamdi Kanu's perpetual detention?
And then we are rehabilitating Boko Haram commanders. He said 120,000 of them have surrendered with foreign currency in their hand. And you have rehabilitated them. But one guy who says, we want justice, we don't want to stay in Nigeria, you are holding him perpetually, using the judiciary or judicial, subterfuge to keep the trial. Everybody who knows what they are doing understand that it's not a judicial matter.
So Nnamdi is essentially a political prisoner.
He's a political hostage. Well, I'll call him not a political because he may not. Whomever is in power, except me, will keep him in jail.
So do you think that Igbos generally are endangered species in Nigeria? Going back what you just narrated.
That's the truth. Nigeria did not forgive Igbos since the end of the Civil War.
What did they do?
Because they challenged the real estate of the British called Nigeria. So, and they didn't forgive them since then. So everything has been done after that. We know this is the unspoken truth about the country called Nigeria.
To support Sowore, one Oyibo man wey be Arrow Smith wey work for Nigeria during the handover wey follow independence no gree make breeze blow before e come open fire nyash. You fit don watch the video before, but you resurface for X na im make we bring am up again.
Yeah. You are alleged that the British government rigged the first and most important election in the history of Nigeria in 1959 in favor of the North. Am I correct?
Yes.
How long were you in Nigeria for?
From 1955 to 1960. And we were based in Lagos. I was on the staff of the Department of Labour, I was largely occupied with employment problems, all the employment exchanges, and statistics and international reports, and was kept pretty busy. I was also stationed in Lagos in charge of the capital and the port. I was the port labour officer as well, and I also devised a port labour scheme and later a social security scheme, which was one of the first in Africa, which guaranteed workers some income after they'd finished work. It was a providence scheme, as I say, it's called the National Providence Scheme, and I was very proud to have put that on the statute book.
I was going to ask you what your role is. You've mentioned three important. Is there any particular name given to your office while you were there?
I was a labour officer, a senior civil servant.
Okay.
I only intended to stay in Lagos initially for 2 tours of duty. Although, because of this conflict with the elections, there were difficulties. Actually, government wouldn't let me leave the civil service. They were determined that I should stay in the civil service after my 2 tours, and I was offered very considerable incentives, including a knighthood, to stay and work for government. Primarily this was because I had access to state secrets. I learned, and the Governor-General himself confirmed this to me, that the elections were rigged, contrived. The intention was that the North should rule Nigeria. Even in '56, the northern leaders were very proud and were saying, if they couldn't run Nigeria, never mind elections. They might not join Nigeria, they might leave. And we all thought, well, how would they survive? There were no industries, there's not a great deal of agriculture, some groundnuts in the north. This wasn't very practical at all. And then it was, the Governor-General seemed to be thinking that the North couldn't, even if it won an election, rule Nigeria by itself. The South wouldn't stand for that. So there had to be a partner, either the Igbos in the east or the Yoruba in the west, to team up with the North. What he didn't want was for the 2 southern parties, the Igbo and the Yoruba, to team up to form the government, because he believed the North wouldn't tolerate that and talked about leaving the federation. So as I learned, in a small way at first, but very rapidly I learned about the election fixing, and as I say, this was confirmed to me by the Governor-General. He actually said that he wanted me to know the truth because he wanted me to know how much trouble I was in.
You mentioned statistics, you were collecting figures. Is that for labor and unemployed people only, or general?
Primarily, but obviously my interest was in the population
of generally. Nigeria.
Yes, and Awolowo, the Yoruba leader of the action group,
yep,
and Chief Enaharo, they too, other people were saying, where are all these millions of people in the north? Where are they? We're going up there to campaign. We want to know, And you see all these, thousands of miles of not very developed countryside, and yet the northerners are claiming that their voting registration figures are larger than in the south, larger, far more people up there. Well, actually, if you went through the Igbo land, Enugu and that, you saw lots and lots of people. If you went to Ibadan, again, Ibadan teeming with millions of people. But we didn't actually see many northerners, and obviously not many northerners at that time came to Lagos. So this did arouse suspicion. Now, the Europeans, not stupid, we are watching what's going on in Nigeria, and we too are beginning to feel there's something not quite right here, that maybe the elections are not going to be as straightforward as they're meant to be. Nigeria was being described as the showcase of democracy, and it was expected that the nationalist leaders would win through. But actually, when the election results were announced by the Governor-General, before the vote was even in, didn't count for that, he didn't wait for that. I have to tell you, the British were counting the votes, and the British cannot be trusted. They look after their friends. Loyalty is the big thing for the British, and we were friends with the emirs of the north. We looked on people like Inaharo and Awolowo as rather dangerous people. They might even be communists. That was ridiculous, actually. They couldn't be communists in 1,000 years. But this was a sort of thing that was being said. And we were, Europeans, were getting a bit worried about all this. It wasn't quite the honest, straightforward election that we were hoping for.
Apart from Professor Anderson and Dr. Patrick Wilmot that supported your submission on the rigged election, there were other people who also served in the colonial office in your days. Who opposed to this submission?
Initially, I was warned of what was going on by my senior officer, a Major Bunker. I didn't know, and I knew that the Governor-General had directed me to take all the office staff of the Ministry of Labour to help Chief Okocha Igbo in politicking in Warri. And this was most irregular, and I refused to do this. Having refused an order, I know what the drill is. You resign. I resigned my post. That is the proper thing to do. What they did then was rather devious. They persuaded me to withdraw my resignation, and when I did, they sacked me. It didn't go through, but I thought this was a bit low after I'd resigned and was prepared to leave the country. This was not very nice behaviour. They later withdrew this and said that I had been of some service to the state, and actually commended me for what I had done, and said I could leave Nigeria with splendid testimonials, and we shook hands on this. And this was done with the recognition of the Deputy Governor-General, Sir Ralph Grey. And then I left Nigeria the first time and took up a job as a personnel officer, a very big job, with the Esso refinery. And then government came after me, declared that I was a traitor, and I had betrayed the British people, ought to be imprisoned, and I lost that job. And then they came to me again and said it's all been a big mistake, dreadful mistake. I'm a jolly decent chap, Oxford chap, and they put me on a plane straight back to Nigeria, where I'd make up for the time I'd been away. There was a great deal of good work for me to do, and we fell for this. We shouldn't have gone back, but we did.
Now, if you recall what you said about the role of the Governor-General and the attitude of the British government in particular, regarding the fear that Awolowo, Okocha Igbo, and the lot of them from the south are dangerous, is there a particular reason? Why the fear from the British government? Is it that they don't want to release or relinquish Nigeria? They still want to control Nigeria?
They knew that the North would do as they said after independence. If it had any, the North would just, because it was their habit, they liked the British, whereas the nationalists were an unknown factor. Actually, when they took the flag down and hoisted the Nigerian flag, Not one of the major nationalist politicians was there. They weren't even on the platform. This was incredible. These were the people who had sought independence. The people in the north didn't want independence. They didn't want the British to leave. So this was a farce. And for most Europeans who were very close and watching this, we were disgusted. We thought this really had been manipulated, this election. It was unworthy. It was unworthy of the British people, this. This was no honest, straightforward thing that you would expect Britain, the mother of parliaments, to do. This was cheap and low and criminal.
Oh yes, my people, make we end them here before this video go long too much. All these stories still there inside YouTube in case you still want to watch them in full. Wait for us for another episode where we go bring you better G's from active voices wey full inside obedient movement. Bye.